Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I am your friendly neighborhood photographer, Christiaan Visagie. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. I know I am. And today's topic is going to be shutter speed. So what exactly is shutter speed? So shutter speed has to do with the amount of time your camera takes to take a photo, okay? In front of your sensor, you've got your mirrors, your shutter mirrors, all right? That open and close when you press the shutter button. So essentially, your shutter speed will determine how quickly those curtains open and close, exposing your sensor for that specific amount of time. So we can start all the way at the slow end, where you can go like 30 seconds, or all the way to the fast end, where it's 1-4000. Now when you see those numbers like 1-4000 or 1-250, whatever the case may be, it is actually a fraction. So 1-4000 means your sensor is exposed for 1/4000th of a second. As you can imagine, that is insanely fast. That is super quick. I mean, actually check. How fast is 1-4000 of a second? Let's see what Google brings up. That's empty. That is empty. Okay, so that was a complete waste of time. I actually wanted to try and get how fast a 4000th of a second is in terms of distance, but topic for another day. If you guys know the answer, please leave it in the comments. Nevertheless, moving on. Okay, so like I said, 1-4000, 1/4000th of a second. And then you get, on the complete opposite side of the spectrum, you get like 30 seconds, which means those curtains are actually open for 30 seconds consecutively, exposing your sensor for that amount of time. What shutter speed will you use in what scenario? It's completely dependent on you, because remember, shutter speed has actually got two effects on your photos. It has initially how fast your camera will capture an image, and then secondly, it determines the exposure, how bright or how dark your image will be. So typically, just working on brightness, if you're shooting in daylight, you'll have a very fast shutter speed because you don't want your sensor exposed for too long to let too much light in. Versus shooting at night, you'll have a very slow shutter speed because you want your sensor to take in as much light as possible. So you need to find a balance between the amount of light you want to let in and what you want to do with the photo, the shutter speed you want to use. So if you're photographing something extremely quick, like say a car or a motorcycle, you can use a very fast shutter speed, somewhere along the lines like 1/640 and upwards. Whereas if you're photographing something like water, you can use a slow shutter speed, anything from like a second down. There are pros and cons to using both of those methods, which we'll discuss in a later video. Nevertheless, when you're photographing a fast subject and you want to introduce some motion blur into the image, you can use a slower shutter speed. So let's say 1-100, and you can just track the subject, and then as you track it, you can fire your shutter button and capture the images, and then in post you'll actually see that the car will be in focus but the background will be blurred. So you'll introduce motion blur, which gives the viewer a sense of movement, a sense of speed. Going to the other side of the spectrum to slow shutter speeds. When you use a slow shutter speed, I would preferably, or not preferably, I'd recommend anything under 1/50th of a second. Start using a tripod, because if you don't use a tripod and you snap that shutter, it's already very slow. So when you snap that shutter button and you have a little bit of movement, your photos are going to come up blurry. So use a tripod, right? You can get awesome effects with slow shutter speeds and water and or clouds. So let's say you use 15 seconds. Okay, that means your curtains are open for 15 consecutive seconds, and your sensor takes in all that movement and all that light for 15 consecutive seconds, and it actually smooths out the water and it smooths out the clouds, and it has this awesome like misty effect. It is so cool. I cannot explain it to you. There are two things to keep in mind when you get to those slow shutter speeds, and we'll go into depth of this in a different video. Number one is camera shake, and number two, when you get to those slow shutter speeds, your camera might actually let in too much light and you'll just get a completely white photo. So to eliminate camera shake, tripod, and then you can get yourself a little remote like this. Okay, so let's just quickly focus it on there. Nope, take that out of the way. So there we go. So basically all you do is you just connect this little remote to your camera and you use the button, and this completely eliminates camera shake. And then obviously pair that with a tripod. Recipe for success. Recipe for success. Now, to counteract brightness in a photo, this is what you do. So, if you are exposing your photo for a lengthy part of time, let's say 15 seconds as an example you're using, you get yourself one of these bad boys, which is called a neutral density filter, or an ND filter. Now this is a variable ND filter, and check what it does. Just put it like that, and then we just turn it, and you can see how it lightens, and it darkens that particular part of my face. Alright? Quite awesome. This is what you use to counteract brightness. We'll go into more depth in a different video. Basically what it is, the slower your shutter speed, the darker you put this bad boy, the longer it takes a photo, and the more blur or motion you introduce into your videos to get those silky smooth clouds and silky smooth water effects. That's about it. That's about what I can tell you on shutter speed. So just a quick recap. Shutter speed is how fast your camera takes a photo, how long your sensor is exposed for. It also controls the brightness. Use a fast shutter speed for fast moving subjects, or a slower shutter speed to introduce motion blur, and use a slow shutter speed for long exposure photos of clouds, waters, what have you. But remember, slow shutter speeds, get yourself a tripod. A remote is not always necessary, but it helps. You can just use a timer function on your camera. And that's about it. We'll cover ISO in a different video. I did cover aperture in a previous video, so please go have a look at that. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.